Hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here. Well, with Halloween right around the corner and you guys asking for more Japanese monster videos, I figured I'd talk about something a little more iconic for the holiday season. Spiders. Japan's got a lot of these. I mean, they've got bovine face arachnids and literally spider hookers. But today I'm talking about another spider demon that was the sole reason I picked up Yo-kai Watch 2 Bony Spirits specifically. Arachnus. Or at least that's what I would call him if his Japanese name of Tsuchigumo didn't tie him to one of the most kick-ass monsters ever to grace live performance. Long before Broadway Spider-Man ruined theatrical performances for MatPat and arachnids everywhere, the Spider Tsuchigumo was and still is a dramatic masterpiece based on a yokai so badass it actually defined an entire clan in Japan. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In-game, Tsuchigumo is an S-rank, Earth-type yokai who leads the Bony Spirits yokai clan in a war against the Fleshy Souls clan, led by Ogama the Great Toad yokai. Despite Tsuchigumo's flamboyant dress, this is one guy you don't want to mess around with. Lobbing boulders, meteors, and constantly entrapping enemies in webs, this guy will wreck your shit. But what was Tsuchigumo according to history, and what does it have to do with Tsuchigumo of Yo-kai Watch? Well, first, breaking down the kanji, Tsuchigumo's name literally means earth spider, or ground spider. So already we're making connections with his earth-type attacks, but we're just getting started. Tsuchigumo folklore also dwelt deep in the twisted and dark tunnels of Japan's mountains, far away from human civilization. And it typically would share domicile with another spider yokai known as Jorogumo. However, where the Jorogumo used feminine seduction to entrap and eat prey, Tsuchigumo preferred cunning, tact, and even infiltration. This leads us to one of my absolute favorite stage plays of all time. A 14th century story from the Heike Monogatari that started off as a no-theater classic turned into one of the most recognizable Kabuki performances to date, Kumo no Ito. Yeah, I bet you were wondering why Tsuchigumo of Yo-kai Watch not only wore elaborate Kabuki makeup and costume, but had a very obvious Kabuki-themed Soultimate move. It all connects very, very closely. To sum up this performance, which I highly suggest you watch, resident badass Heian period leader Minamoto no Yorimitsu was suffering from malaria, but among his local retainers, Usui Sadamitsu and Sakata no Kintoki kept by his side 24/7. A shady traveling priest that looked awfully familiar offered medicine to Yorimitsu, but like the badass he was, he actually saw through the priest's disguise and slashed at him with his sword. Bleeding out, the priest flees, transforming back into his true form of Tsuchigumo. Now get this. Malaria-stricken Yorimitsu actually got out of his bed, rounded up Sadamitsu, Kintoki, as well as his two other retainers, Urabe Setai and Watanabe no Tsuna, and followed the trail of blood to the monster's home where they had a climactic showdown. When I say it was climactic, I mean it was climactic. In all of the Japanese stage performances I've seen, the showdown between Yorimitsu and his posse and Tsuchigumo was one of the most large-scale climaxes I've ever seen in Kabuki. The movement and dance of the actors plays the stage as if it were a musical instrument, and the visual effect of Tsuchigumo throwing his web multiple times has got to be the highlight of that confrontation. Regardless, Yorimitsu and crew were victorious, and upon Tsuchigumo's death, Yorimitsu's health returned immediately. But what if I told you the legacy of Tsuchigumo transcends its stage play? And what if I told you Tsuchigumo was real? Sitting between Nara and Osaka lies Katsuragi Hitokoto Nushi Shrine. While it's said the kami house here will grant you one-word wishes, it is also said that the disembodied head, legs, and torso of Tsuchigumo are buried here, split between different burial mounds to prevent the creature from ever returning to life. What, is that too speculative? Well, how about this? Japan has some pretty insane spiders, like the giant huntsman spider who can take down a poisonous centipede like it's no big deal. But none of them both make webs and predominantly hangs out on the ground. Except one. The Kogane Gumo. This fairly large arachnid does create webs for prey, but always under a meter off the ground, staying close to the earth where it can hide from larger creatures. Pretty sneaky. But what could really link the Kogane Gumo to Tsuchigumo is the bold white patterns on its web. These patterns not only give the web a floral appearance, but it actually reflects UV lights to attract prey. One of the only spiders in existence to attract prey instead of catching it by chance. Using mimic trickery and illusions to catch prey? Sounds like our spider yokais. But if you're still not convinced, there's one final theory to the real-life origin of this amazing monster. Going back to Yo-kai Watch, I mentioned that Tsuchigumo is the general and leader of the Bony Spirits clan who are rebelling against the Fleshy Souls clan. In this, there are two things I want to point out. 1. Tsuchigumo complains that the Fleshy Souls clan are unwilling to try a quote, new way, and 2. Whisper speculates that there must be some deep-rooted philosophical reasoning behind it. Despite the actual reason, this setup of a civil war perfectly mirrors the true origin of Tsuchigumo. Going back to Japan's oldest chronicled historical document, the Nihon Shoki, there were indigenous clans whose presence stretched from Katsuragi, oh, that one shrine where the monster was buried, all the way to the far eastern reaches of Honshu. These were the eastern clans that defied the emperor and created a massive civil war. Being indigenous to the land, they would utilize underground passageways through the mountains in order to fight guerrilla style against the emperor's troops, thus earning them the name Tsuchigomori, or those that hide under the ground. But they also adopted a spider as a totem for their clan, and thus they became known as Tsuchigumo, horrible monsters of men who hid in the mountains and dared to defy the infallible emperor's will. Sound familiar? Well, it should, because this not only symbolizes Tsuchigumo of folklore being a mountain-dwelling monster that preys on the good people of Japan, but also mirrors the Civil War conflict in Yo-kai Watch 2. Though the true reason behind the infighting is incredibly silly, the idea of two ideologies slamming together, splitting apart the yokai into two groups, is much like Japan's ancient civil war that divided those loyal to the emperor and the indigenous Tsuchigumo clans who had their own beliefs and ideas. And that's why I love this game. Every single monster just completely drips of history and folklore, and Tsuchigumo is no exception. From yokai to kabuki to even Japan's written history, there's just so much to this guy. And he's like one of 350 monsters, each with their own real-world folklore and history. And you better believe I would love to talk about them all, but I think it's time to wrap this up. So thanks for watching, everyone. Next time, I'll be joined by a very special guest, and we'll discover the Polynesian roots behind the Alolan Dugtrio. Oh yes, there are reasons, multiple reasons, for this design. And if you want to make sure to not miss out on that breakdown, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification button to make sure you don't miss a single new culture and gaming video. But if you're hungry for more, click those annotations, cards, and links in the description to learn just how amazing our world's culture is through gaming. But until next time, everyone, this is Gaijin Goombah, signing out.